What did you like about it?
Oh, it was pretty easy, you know, like straightforward and easy. Like.
And no difficult sections in it?
Not really.
How did you feel about the paper?
I thought it was very good. I didn't like the poetry as much as the rest, but it was quite good though.
What did you think of today's paper?
I thought it was horrible because I had learnt 3 language topics and I only got 1 of them, and then none of them were on them. It was really repulsive.
I thought it was horrible. Really, I did. I
Why?
thought it was really. Well, I thought I'd learned pretty well everything, and then I went and did this, and none of the questions suited me. It just didn't suit me.
Does everybody else think it was quite okay though?
I don't know anyone that's liked it, really, yet. Not yet, anyway.
We supposed to have 2 questions in the first section, and we got 3 and we didn't know anything about it. We sort of got the paper and everyone just sat there. But we had enough time.
You're quite happy with
Oh
it?
yeah, I think so.
I thought it was all right except for the language because we didn't know anything about the topics.
Do you think it was a fair paper?
Yes.
I don't. I thought it was rotten, absolutely rotten.
60-year-old Dr. John Stephen and his nurse Rose Wallace were dramatically acquitted today of abortion charges. The Scottish-born doctor, who now lives at Merewether, made an emotional 20-minute appeal to the jury without giving any evidence on his own behalf. At times, Dr. Stevens appeared to be close to tears during the time he spoke. At other times, it was difficult to hear all of what he said. A violent thunderstorm broke over Newcastle at that time, drowning some of his words. The charge had alleged that Dr. Stevens and Nurse Wallace had performed an illegal operation on a 17-year-old girl. Speaking from the dock, Dr. Stevens said he came from a medical family and had always carried out his profession according to the highest medical ideals. He told the jury that a pregnancy could have killed the girl and that he was not guilty of any criminal act. He said he believed in the sanctity of human life and would not have disturbed a pregnancy for any other than a good reason. Dr. Stevens said the girl needed a curette to finish an incomplete abortion. While the rain continued to drown out some of his words, Dr. Stevens finished his plea to the jury by adding he hoped they would allow him to continue with his work. After Dr. Stevens made his statement, Judge Healy told the jury that they could acquit at any time during the case. After a short break, the jury returned and then acquitted both Dr. Stevens and Nurse Wallace of the abortion charges.
Right, that sounds like it.
Captain, before we start on what you're going to do, what about what you're not going to do? Have you finally abandoned a scheme at Redhead?
Our proposals were to investigate a number of sites.
Redhead
And
was one.
Redhead was very firmly one of them, so was Stockton Bight, and we are interested in the developments within the Port of Newcastle as well. All these have got to be properly integrated into one scheme which will meet the requirements of the trade, will involve minimum capital expenditure commensurate with doing this at various stages in future time. And coming back to Redhead, we wanted to establish whether a site in that area was acceptable before we went ahead and spent large sums of money on engineering studies. I was a little disappointed that some people have made a decision without my opportunity to fully inform them of the facts.
Redhead would have been the most economical site, would it?
Redhead would have been the most economical site from the point of view of offshore construction. You need to go a lesser distance out into deep water to get satisfactory sea conditions.
Before we come to Stockton Bight, which is another one you're considering, have you also more or less given up considering Port Stephens itself? Salamander Bay, for instance.
We did not ever consider going into Salamander Bay because the cost of dredging was beyond the range of the sort of project that I'm able to consider.
Does this mean then that Salamander Bay will not be developed or just won't be developed fast enough for you?
As I see it, there's no prospect of Salamander Bay being available in time to meet the growing requirements of the coal export trade.
Your deadline's about 1973 then, so you're looking at Stockton.
Yes, if there is no expansion within the Port of Newcastle beyond the capability of the present Carrington Basin loader, augmented by the additional stock reserve at Canwan and the reserve which Mr. Morris recently announced in that area, then as I see it, the market and the production capability will exist by mid-73 to have more tonnage of coal available than can be shipped out.
Will it not be a case of more tonnage of coal that can be shipped through Newcastle anyway because of the limitation on ship size?
Well, undoubtedly more ships of up to 50,000 tonnes can come in and out of the port of Newcastle. If they're ships engaged in the coal trade, then this may restrict the number of ships of this size which can use the port for other purposes. And I believe that one advantage of an offshore loader is that it enables the port of Newcastle to serve other trades which are less satisfactorily serviced by an offshore loader.
One sort of final question then. You hope to have a loader in Stockton Bight somewhere by 1973, or ready to go in 73.
I believe it's possible to do this subject to completing the detailed engineering studies.
This is a long job though.
It's 2 years of construction time.
But I mean, what about the engineering studies? This is a long job too.
The engineering studies will take a minimum of 6 months. A minimum, and as I see it, a maximum that one can reasonably allow.
Well, what's the last question? What's stopping you from going ahead with it right now?
I need to establish a sufficient degree of support within the coal industry to provide the equity for the total project.
In other words, you've got to sort of consolidate your cooperative.
That's right.
Well, there we'll leave it with high hopes that we'll see a coal loader in Newcastle soon. Thank you, Captain
Thank you.
Bell.
Well, beauty comes to the races. And with me is Miss Norway of 1968, Miss Scandinavia of 1969, Tony Canaran. How are you, Tony?
Fine, thank you.
Tony,
It's a little bit cold.
it is very cold
yes.
this morning. Tony, something about your history with horses. I believe you're a lover of horse racing.
Oh yes, I've been riding for 10 years and track work, but also show jumping and dressage. That's what I do most now. I like to take a trip out here and look at the race course because it's very beautiful.
And Norway, what else do you do over there?
Well, I fly, have my pilot license, and I model, and I study history art.
And you were in a fashion parade at Flemington on
Yes.
Melbourne Cup Day.
Right.
And what's your selection for the Melbourne Cup?
Oh, must be Valor, I think.
You think for
Yes.
Well, there you have it from the possibly the prettiest girl on the course this morning, Miss Norway, Tony Canaran. Thank you very much, Tony. After Saturday, this gentleman will know which horse he's really going to ride. It's Roy Higgins, the champion Victorian jockey. Roy, who do you fancy at this stage of the game?
Well, I'll be riding Tavel in the Hotham Handicap, Noel, and I'll see how he goes, providing he pleases. He looks my main chance for the Melbourne Cup. It's falling away to a pretty ordinary race this year, the Melbourne Cup. Probably Valeur is the best potential horse in the race, but he is still a big overgrown baby. Next year, Valeur will be a much better horse. I think he'll go into the Cup a much better horse than what he will this year. But probably he is the horse going into the race that does look the winner. But it's fallen away to a pretty ordinary race.
If there was an outsider in the race that you'd fancy, which one would that be?
I haven't seen a lot of Regal Jane. There are very good reports about her from Sydney. Although she's not an outsider, I think she's only an 8 or 10 to 1 chance, but there are very good reports about her. And if Tavel pleases, well, he's only going to start 8 or 10 to 1 in the Cup. Well, I'm hoping he's the best outsider, I'll put it that way, in the race, if I'm riding him.
Well, there you are, Victoria's ace jockey, Roy Higgins.
Thank you, Noel.
Thanks, Roy.